What's going on, everybody? Mortem here, this time bringing you my next roughly 10 or so reviews, which is a video I like to make every couple of months, just kind of giving people a peek into the immediate future for the channel and what I plan on covering, that kind of thing. And given that I'm just about to wrap up the previous iteration of this video, and the fact that we've rolled over into 2026, I want to give people a snapshot of the, again, immediate future of the next couple of months. With that in mind, I did at the beginning of the year, as always, talk about the games that I plan on reviewing new and old for the entirety of the year, so I do apologize if some of this is a little redundant for people in terms of the actual games themselves, but again, this is more about the schedule than the actual content. And if I'm being real honest, a bit of an organizational tool for myself, actually. Otherwise, though, let's go ahead and dive fully into this. So, as people are already aware, I'll be wrapping up Phantom Brigade very soon, a mech TRPG. Not a particularly long game. I will more than likely finish this over the weekend, and you'll probably see this either like Monday or Tuesday, depending on when exactly I finish it, mind you. I also wanted to mention a few random updates, not so much because they are reviews, but rather because I know people are asking about them already. So, Swordhaven, as an example, that is a CRPG that launched right at the end of last year. I am waiting for the 1.1 update for that, which is supposed to bring some promised Kickstarter content to it, a Kickstarter that I backed. In fact, that is not high on my priority list. I'm not exactly sure. They don't have like dates on that or anything yet, so I will cover Swordhaven around the time that launches. No current plans otherwise. The same kind of goes with Of Ash and Steel. This was an interesting but extremely buggy game that also launched right at the end of last year. I still plan on revisiting it once they get their updates done, but I do expect that to be a couple of months. I also know somebody's bound to ask about Avowed's Anniversary Edition that is coming up, or their Anniversary Update, I should say, rather, which will be happening sometime in February, presumably on the anniversary date, which should be February 18th, but we'll see. Yes, I will obviously cover that. I'm looking forward to jumping into it and seeing what they've changed and added. New Game Plus, new races, things like that are expected. People already know that I love Pillars of Eternity. Obviously, I'm going to cover that. And then, still yet, before we dive in fully, there's also the early access games. I should probably mention that, will I be covering these? Yes. Will they be reviews? No. I don't review games in early access. In this particular instance, that should include Menace, the upcoming TRPG from the makers of Battle Brothers, on top of Solasta 2, which is set to release into early access on March 12th, which I've just talked about recently. And then finally, before we jump into the rest of the video and everything we've got to cover, there might, as always, be a couple potential curveballs thrown in there. For instance, we've got the upcoming Developer Direct in about a week or so. I don't really expect any release dates to necessarily be announced there, but we are getting some new information about a couple of games, and it's not out of the realm of possibility. There are other games, mind you, that I'm basically just waiting for release dates on, but there is simply no way to plan for those, and we'll ultimately just have to see what happens. From there, let's first talk about the games that actually have at least release date or release windows coming up for our new releases. Starting with Nioh 3. Nioh 3 is set to release on February 5th on, I believe, like the 29th or something like that, somewhere towards the end of the month. It's also getting an updated demo over on Steam and the like, which will let us naturally try it out for ourselves ahead of time, which I'm personally looking forward to. I really enjoyed Nioh a lot, though probably worth a mention that a lot of the games from Team Ninja here typically get DLC after the fact that can significantly advance them, so I imagine that's a game that will change over the course of those updates and subsequent New Game Plus cycles if the previous Niohs are anything to go by, so something to keep in mind. Next up, we've got releasing on the exact same day, February 5th, Dragon Quest VII, or Dragon Quest VII Reimagined to be specific, and this is a game that I was debating whether or not to cover initially, just because there's kind of a lot going around that date, but I am going to make time for this. I don't know that I'll necessarily be close to the release date. I'll probably prioritize Nioh, to be honest. However, this game also got a demo over on Steam that I played through and covered, and I enjoyed it a lot more than I was expecting to, actually. That game is divided up into these little individual stories that then feed into the larger narrative, and at least the one in the demo was like really well done. And I'm genuinely curious if the rest of the game can keep up that narrative pacing, especially since the Reimagined version is said to have streamlined and changed a lot of the presentation and everything, so it'll be curious overall. But honestly, just on the strength of that demo, I'm going to make more of an effort to make time for this one. So here we are. Following on from that, on February 13th, we have High on Life 2, a raunchy sequel to a very raunchy game that was High on Life. That said, I personally find these games very, very funny, but it must be said that YouTube is not a fan. Stuff like this has a habit of getting demonetized on YouTube very, very quickly, or at the very least age-restricted. YouTube gave me a hassle over the first game, and I'm expecting something to that degree here. And so I'm going to have to ask myself if I am going to be able to cover this game in a way that is not going to be censored to the point of wasting everyone's time. But that's more of a problem on the content creator side of things, and honestly just a frustration I have with YouTube as a platform sometimes. Either way, though, I'm looking forward to playing this game. I am not, however, looking forward to trying to parse out exactly what to cover in the review to make it a worthwhile endeavor, while also making sure YouTube isn't annoying about it. A little bit later, we then have the 1.0 release for Banquet For Fools, which should be releasing on February 26th now, which is a little bit of a delay, by the way. This game was initially slated for the end of January here. However, just very recently, they pushed it back a month so they could continue working on some features. This is a small indie game made primarily by 2 people, so not a gigantic surprise or anything. However, it is a delightfully strange little title that I'm looking forward to playing more of, though it is maybe a little bit difficult to explain in passing, so you might want to look up some of my old videos on that one, I guess. And that brings us into March, starting with Mouse PI for Hire on March 19th. This is just kind of another silly little game I'm going to use to break up things. It basically takes those old, recently entered the public domain versions of Steamboat Willie, I believe it was, and makes a silly sort of boomer shooter about it. Honestly, this one just looks really funny, and I want to play it because of that, and I'm hoping it's a decent game underneath at the same time, and we'll all find out together. However, releasing on that very same day, we're also supposed to be getting Crimson Desert, which is, again, also releasing on March 19th. Crimson Desert is such a curiosity for me because I think if they pull off the things that they've shown in the marketing, it'll be really cool, but I also, at the same time, acknowledge that there's a lot of room for this to go wrong and be kind of shallow. So I'm going into that one hoping it's really cool, but I just, again, acknowledge that this might turn out to be a bit of a nothing burger, but with any luck, I think it lives up to the aspirations it's clearly shooting for. And then for our last 2 new releases, we don't have an exact date, but they are both set for Q1, starting with, of course, the Gothic 1 remake. Love the Gothic games. I got to them very late compared to many people, mind you, but even as old as they were, I had a great time once I actually got into them. The catch being that they are extremely difficult to get into, thanks to a variety of reasons, not least of which things like clunky controls, what you've got to do to get them running, that kind of thing. And so a remake that, by all accounts, seems to be doing pretty cool stuff, offering people the chance to get into really great games in a way that is going to be much easier for them is, I think, an exciting opportunity, and I'm hoping they stick the landing with it. I am genuinely looking forward to this game a lot. Then we've got Esoteric Ebb, also slated for some time in Q1. Esoteric Ebb being a narrative title, primarily, kind of in the vein of Disco Elysium, yes. This one centering in a world ruled by Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition type rules, and if anything, it seems to play something akin to a D&D one-shot where we play as a cleric trying to get to the bottom of a mystery, and it has a public demo that I would recommend people try. I liked it a great deal, and I'm looking forward to playing the full version. Now, our last 2 titles are going to be prior releases, games that are already released and out, and then I would like to get to simply because they're games I want to add to everything I've got going on. Starting with Assassin's Creed Mirage. I am trying to play more of the Assassin's Creed franchise. I just kind of want to see more of those games because I stopped playing them basically after Assassin's Creed 2 until Assassin's Creed Shadows, which didn't really land for me. And I kind of just want to play other games in the series. Ubisoft, for Mirage's recent 1.1 update, reached out and asked if I wanted a key for it, which I was like, yeah, sure, I guess. So it, on top of being, from what I understand, a shorter title, made sense to like start here, I suppose, then, and kind of just work my way around the series and see what sticks, I suppose, but one way or another, covering that Assassin's Creed title soon enough. And then, last but not least, we've got Middle-earth: Shadow of Mordor, and its sequel, Shadow of War, though I won't be reviewing War straight away, are both known for their big Nemesis system, which is a novel system that other people haven't been able to use and fully realize thanks to some annoying legalities, mind you, that I don't want to get into here, but long story short, I've played both Middle-earth, Shadow of Mordor, and Shadow of War, and I just never got around to playing the DLCs because I played them way back when. I had barely even started a YouTube channel at the time, never covered them on the channel, and I basically just have a few things to wrap up achievement-wise, but also I can just go back, replay them, experience the system, and then provide a sort of updated review and make sure I have videos covering, again, a very novel system is kind of the goal there. Obviously, though, going to start with Shadow of Mordor, and hopefully this will be fun, because I never really did play the DLC for either of those games, because I was a little tight on cash back then, but in addition to covering that system, some of it will genuinely be new content for me, at least, which should be an interesting one, but all told, that should pretty much cover the next few months. I fully expect this to take us into probably around the start of April, when I'll probably make another one of these, as always, but as for today, I think that will pretty much cover it. So hopefully you enjoyed the video and you're looking forward to these reviews. If you did, by all means, like, comment, subscribe, all the YouTube jazz, but regardless of any of that, truly, just thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. May you wander in wisdom and have an amazing day.